Hi, welcome to my Aperture and Shutter Priority real-life class. Those are my students at the background. And I was thinking, we should dedicate an episode to the YouTube channel on how to shoot Aperture Priority the correct way.
Action!
Many of you serious photographers by now should be shooting on your full manual exposure mode, which means that you are controlling your own ISO. You're also controlling your own aperture like this, your f value, and also your shutter speed. This can all be a lot of fun, but there's so much of work. So hence, many more serious photographers would have gone to maybe aperture priority mode like this, or shutter priority mode like this one. Let's talk about aperture priority. Aperture priority means that the camera will handle the ISO for you, and the camera will handle the shutter speed for you. You just need to manage your aperture. So example, if I want to do at f4, you notice that the camera would change my shutter speed to ensure that I'm always at mid-tone exposure. But wait a minute. This is the problem. How can the camera be changing my shutter speed? What if I point my camera to somewhere really dark? You will notice that I may get my shutter speed too low. Hence, many of you write in to ask me when I'm using aperture priority, my shutter speed drops too low and I get blurry shot. Well, here's the answer. It is not just as simple as changing your mode to aperture priority. There are a few settings you need to do. Firstly, you need to go into your camera's menu. If you're a Nikon user, it can be found in ISO sensitivity settings. Go in there. As you can see, your auto ISO sensitivity settings is off. Turn that on, and you now have a few things that you need to do. Essentially, you're trying to tell your camera that, hey, instead of taking my shutter speed, use my ISO instead. Because if you were to use my shutter speed, I will run out of shutter speed number and end up with blurry shot. So here you go. You're telling the camera that my maximum ISO, 6400, 6400. I don't want to go higher than that and get noise. So that's the limit it will go. And then if I use flash, what is the highest? So maybe I'll set that a little bit lower, 3200. In the coming episode, I'll show you how you can use your flash with aperture priority. Let's not do this in this episode. And the shutter speed, what is the minimum that it will dip? Because I do not want it to go too low and end up with blurry shot. So once I've done this, that's the first part. You will notice that there's another thing you need to do. Go to your ISO, right? Make sure that your ISO is not auto like this now. Turn it off first. Let me explain why. Because you want to bring your ISO down to the lower value. Why do you want to do that? If you own a Nikon camera, you understand why. Let me just set it back to 1600 for now and set it to auto ISO. You will notice that the camera will still be taking my shutter speed. Call it a bug, call it whatever, but you did tell the camera that your lowest ISO is 1600. So it will not go lower than that. So you notice that it will be changing my shutter speed still. So here's the workaround. Go to your ISO, turn off the auto ISO, bring this down to maybe even 100 if you want to. After you have done this, turn on your auto ISO. And now, check it out. It will be changing my ISO instead of my shutter speed. So if I point it to somewhere bright, I will get more shutter speed to work with. It will use the lowest ISO. That's pretty smart. If I point it to somewhere darker, you'll notice that it will raise my ISO instead of making me run out of shutter speed. So that's the right way to deal with aperture priority. Oh hey, here's an extra tip for you. If you're using aperture priority frequently, you will notice that your camera's exposure is not that correct and you need to compensate it brighter or darker, what you typically do is to hold down this button with your index finger and then turn the dial at the back. It's a 2-finger action. You don't like that? Simple. Go to menu. Look for, under the pencil icon, look for the B, which is metering and exposure. Go in there. Look for B4, which is easy exposure compensation. Go on in, choose on. And the good part about this now, instead of using your index finger, you can now use your thumb. Turning it to the left would compensate your camera negative, and turning it to the right now would allow you to bring up your compensation. If you like what you learned in this episode, don't forget to write to us, info@beyondphotography.com.my, because if your question get featured and answered with an episode, you win yourself a free gift. Head on to our website, there's more e-learning there, and I hope that you support us so that we can continue making lessons like this. See ya.